Welcome to Positive Philter with your host, Philip Wilkerson, a podcast that focuses on friends, family, health, and career, with a little self-help along the way. Please join me in this journey for self-improvement, and I hope what I have to share will make you a better person, thus making the world a better place. I hope you enjoy the show. I hope you enjoy the show. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls and people. It's Philip Wilkerson back with another episode of Positive Philter. I'm joined by a special guest. Well, everyone's a special guest, but I'm joined by leadership here. I'm joined by the good brother, Fred Scott. Now, for those that are not members of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, we have levels. At those levels, we have the chapter, we have the state, and we have higher than the state. Well, actually, chapter, an area, and then a state level. And so I'm joined by the head honcho of Virginia. And so that's quite a remarkable, we know that Virginia is probably the best state in the United States. You know, I love Virginia. I'm not saying I'm born and raised, but mostly raised here. And I'm joined by this phenomenal brother who leads Alpha in that area in this regards to the state level. And so this podcast is going to be a little bit about his thoughts, his experiences on leadership, because obviously he's a leader. I view him as such, and I want to learn from him. And I think you can learn from him too. But before we get in this episode, Brother Fred Scott, do you want to give the listeners a little introduction about who you are beyond what I just did?
Well, Brother Wilkerson, I'd like to thank you for that kind introduction. I am Fred Scott, so I'll give my brief synopsis. I am a native Richmonder. Grew up there. I've graduated from schools in Richmond Public Schools. I went to Hampton University. I went to Columbia University. I finished some other schools to get additional endorsements. I spent 33 years in the K through 12 market, doing everything from teacher to curriculum specialist, principal, and all other roles. And now I've been in the space of ed tech for almost 5 years, doing education consulting with school districts all over the country in talent management. And I've been a leader since I was, I think 17 in some kind of role. And I'm excited to talk about leadership and just talk about you guys. I'm always looking to empowering others. So that's where I stand. And 2 words I hope you get from me today that I'm always trying to do is value and impact.
I love it. Well, you brought a tremendous value to me already, and you have quite an impact. And I think I love that because I think I was thinking about that words mean power. And I think impact was one of my words of the week for me, for myself, like making sure that, you know, status, there's a difference between status and impact, right? You don't need to have titles to have an impact. You can have an impact just being yourself and caring about people. That's an impact. So I love it. So let's go back to that journey. You said you've been a leader since 17 years old. So what is that like? What is that? The budding leadership? When did that start?
It started. I was always an Indian and continue still to be an Indian when necessary. But I had a high school teacher, and God rest her soul. She thought, you were born to lead and you have great potential. So you need to get out there and just lead it. You always are working behind the scene and pushing others and da-da-da-da-da. So I was like, I had a great interest in yearbooks and et cetera, and I did it in high school. And she told me that. So when I got to Hampton University, I became the first and the only editor-in-chief that did it for 3 consecutive years. So my first leadership role was there. And what was probably pivotal for me was the university was about to cancel having a yearbook. And they said the students don't want it. The quality is not good. They never come in on time. And if if you can lead it. And I was a sophomore and I had a team and I said, we got to revise, innovate, stay under budget, and build an interest, which we did. And we produced a couple of award-winning books, which survived that book forevermore. So that was the start of my leadership. And I learned that I could do that because I figured out my value and what impact I could do through that.
I love it. So, yeah, I always love it, because I think some people in regards to leadership is more like they get some external validation and that infuses them, or there's some intrinsic, like I feel like I'm a leader. And so you kind of touch upon both, like the realization that you had someone that believed in you externally, but then you started believing in yourself. So can you talk about that? Like, what were some of the things that she saw in you that you believe when you were a budding leader, that teacher you spoke to? And then when did the switch flip and you started saying, okay, like, no, seriously, like I believe I'm a quote unquote leader,
Well, out of that experience, we had the value would be we had to produce a product that the students would be proud of. So to lead that as a leader, I had to do several things. So being a leader, you got to know yourself. So I was a new leader, so I need to know myself. So I had to assess my strengths and what would be my growth opportunities. I did identify what were my strengths that I could do as a leader, and I had the ability to influence and really empower others and bring people in. But I also looked at what would be my growth opportunities in doing this. It was all new, and I was young. And then the next thing I did to share, if anybody who's a budding leader, is I set a vision and goals. So every leadership role I've had is I've always set a vision. This is where I want to go. And then I set goals based on that, based off of that organizational belief. So I've been doing it now for a long time, and great to do it within my own fraternity. But I did that starting back then. I've done it through my professional career, even when I was in a department when I was leading, or a school, a division, and now the fraternity. So set a vision. And then always initiate a shared decision-making and collaboration. If you're able to participate, share in the style and pull the strengths and the talents of others and collaborate, it's not about you. It's about whatever the service and product you're trying to produce. And whether in your professional life, your organizational life, it's going to propel, and people are going to feel like they're part of the process. John Maxwell, I think a lot of people know who he is. Yeah. He said that leaders must be close enough to relate to others, but far ahead to motivate them. So one of the things I've always think it was really important is I need to be close to people. I be able to relate to them. I got to be able to motivate. And from that, I get the energy from other people. So do what you can with what you can, where you are. That's Theodore Roosevelt.
I love it.
So she saw something in me that I just did not ever see because I just didn't have that confidence. I was just a kid that I could do a lot of great things. I discovered early on I had an artistic background. I had a good way of organizing, good visualization. Artistic meaning art and music, and had a good sense of self. I could write, which was one. She was a real tough person on. I could write. I could do arithmetic. Yeah. I could read. But most of all, she said, "You haven't touched your beginning," and I think she would be proud right now.
Definitely she'd be proud. And I want to pull back because I thought that was quite a remarkable quote about being close, but being far ahead. So what does that mean? Like, does that mean outpacing people? Does that mean, what does that mean? I love that.
You know what that means? It means that you got to be with the people, but I cannot turn my brain off sometimes. I'm always thinking ahead, the next thing. And I'm always ahead going, I can see this, that, and the other. And it's been a gift of mine. And so it's enough to think ahead. And also then I move towards using my goals and also getting people to motivate them to do so. So that's a good thing to have. If I lost that, then I know I'm now coming towards the end.
Like just looking at the future mentally. So like I was thinking about, like I said, we had some set questions, but I was thinking about that too. Like, how do you think that visualization played out in unprecedented times? So for instance, you took leadership, I believe in 2019, right?
Yeah. And
like, you're like, 2019, we're doing it. We're in person. I love it. and then like pandemic happened, but you still had to have a vision. How do you believe that maybe some of the things that you thought about, you said you started, how do you believe that played out with like, it's still, no matter what, my vision of, and it could be the fraternity, but also just in general with the ed tech and all that stuff. How do you think that still kind of coasted you out because you still pictured some kind of future?
And you know what? There in your life, you get experiences that set you up for something later that you're not even know or aware of. Mm-hmm. And because I have a great love of technology from 1983, 84, early on, and then getting my master's degree in instructional technology from Columbia University, who really propelled me about what if classrooms became virtual and hybrid at the same time. And that was way back in 1999. We were having that discussion and how would you facilitate that? Being flexible and, agility. We've heard that a lot. We've heard so many agile, all those kind of terminologies. And as soon as the pandemic hit, all of a sudden, because technology is one of my strengths, that I was able to lead with that and just pivot and use, hey, these are still the goals. The goal that we had this past year was coming together to enhance the brotherhood. That was a piece to say, okay, now together we will do the following. I kept saying, we got to do it. We got to renovate. So, my name, I've always said the F is to facilitate, the R is to renovate, the E is to educate and develop in everything that I do. So that played a part in all of that.
Hey, your name already had an acronym. I need to get on that for Philip. I think it's like just positive and then H happy or something. I'm gonna make it, Fred, because of that, I'm gonna make up my own algorithm. Not algorithm, but acronym. I'm gonna make one up.
You can make one up. Cool. I made up my acronym when I truly discovered where I was in my career and everything about 25 years ago, and I haven't moved from it. And I wrote that into an essay that I had that came fluid to me, and it just came out of me. And from that point, I've been using it.
You know what? Okay, I have a challenge. I'm going to do that. I'm going to make a LinkedIn article. I'm going to use my name, and I'm going to tag you because you inspired me to think about my brand and my.
And I'm really good with acronyms. So a good friend of mine, when she retired, Rosemary, hi Rosemary, they asked me to speak, and I took the name Rosemary and came up with words right on the spot. But it came from the heart, it came from the mind and soul, and so vocabulary development is important, kids out there. So you can use those terms to down the road, but it meant something to her. And she kept saying, "What was that M?" And I was like, "I don't remember. If y'all didn't record it, that's it."
Yeah. I love that. And I love that you had a future vision. So, I think this is, and you dropped some tips. What do you think are some qualities of a good leader? Like what are some and obviously we've had this discussion. I've been a member of the Alpha Leadership Academy right now. I'm learning and having different speakers, and I've heard different qualities. So that means there's no one size fit all. But what are some of your qualities? Like, what do you think are qualities for a good leader?
I think this is from what I've learned over the years and time and space, that self-awareness, knowing your skills and strengths and knowing who you are is important. I also learned that I believe that a good quality leader would possess tenacity, because a leader is going to have ups and downs. The downs are going to be what is going to really play off to strengthen him or her down the road. Communication skills is key. I truly believe that if you're going to be a leader, you have to have the ability to speak, the ability to write, the ability to translate that information clear and concise. Delegation as a leader is important. I learned from being at Hampton and in multiple roles now in the organization and even in professional life. And when I led my school in school improvement, even from Richmond Public Schools and Chesterfield, that delegation and pulling those skills, the right people on the bus is important. Being empathetic is important as a quality of a good leader. An active listener, being able to listen and reflect, not only as an active listener, but a reflective listener. Another one is learning to being agile, going along with it, to knowing what's happening, what you need to do to grow, because you're not going to know all the answers. And then the biggest one is integrity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And why is that the biggest one?
That's what people, when you look at leaders of our past, present, and possible future, it's their integrity, it's who their character is, who's their content knowledge, their ability to communicate. All the things I just said resonates with people, and they just of who they are. And not to get political, but politicians do get up there in that group of leaders, but there's so many other leaders in so many other professions that lead with such great integrity.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, obviously, one of the things that you come to find out is that everyone could be a leader, right? And we only look at people on pedestals and titles. But as I become older, I realized that it's less hierarchical in the sense that some of the people that I always looked up to, whether it was just a teacher, they were a leader to me. I just didn't know what to call it. So, with that,
but there's a difference between. But there is a difference between a mentor and a leader.
Go ahead. Speak to
there is a difference between a mentor and a leader. And some people who are mentors are just that. But then there are people who are leaders who are mentors. Yeah. They could be one or the same. I mean, they can be both. But if they're just a mentor, they're just mentoring. They're not trying to lead you. If they lead you, they're trying to lead. And they're showing as an example. But there are the exceptional people who are leaders and mentors who are doing both because they're trying to build up the next leadership model. The next leadership cadres.
Well, now I was about to say that. Now that you just said that, I do can think of some mental examples of people that did that. Like, just mentor. Like it's almost like I'm staying in my lane, and they were just kind of helping people. But then I do know people that were like, it's almost grooming in a sense, like you're going to do this and surpass this. And they were mentoring, but they also were doing what you said, infusing the next generation.
Yeah.
Okay. I think you're talking about yourself. I know you were trying to plug yourself, but it's okay. The leader mentor.
But you know what? There's a time when you are just mentoring.
Yeah.
And then there's a time where you are leading. There's a time where you're doing a combination of both. It depends on the relationship of what you have with that person.
Yeah. I feel like we can make a Venn diagram with that. There's some examples. No,
I mean, there are people that I work professionally with that I am leading. There's sometimes I get an opportunity to mentor internal colleagues. But when I'm working with professionally clients, I'm trying to lead them. Lead them in the best direction based off of their service goals and et cetera. So that's a little different.
Gotcha. So what, obviously we all have different leadership styles. If you were like thinking about it, one, what do you think is your leadership style? And then there's the second part, like, who do you think you model it after? Like who's like, man, this is kind of like, I'm acting like expert, this person 2.0, like I feel like I woke up and I'm the person I looked up to. So what kind of,
I would describe myself there's a whole lot of leadership models, but the one that I have been tested using different assessments is this situational leadership. That was the one that I came up the strongest in. And that's my leadership style. And if I were to say who set the tone in the model for my style, there'd be people from afar and close. So I'll start from afar, even as a young child growing up, and then also moving through adolescence, college, and et cetera. I did admire Dr. Martin Luther King. I remember when he died, I was a young kid, but I was like, when you read his stuff, I was like, this man was so intellectually brilliant in articulating words that it's like, wow, at his age, he was able to put that down on paper, or he was able to speak it. And he spoke from a place that we haven't seen from many others. And so I did admire that. And I still do admire just what he said in his words, because his statement I love the most is, the time to do things that's right is always right. I mean, I think I said it wrong, but that's in my head about, you got to, whatever time it is to do what's right, you got to do it. If it's right to do it, do it. But there's so many things he said that's been, that he led. And one of the things that I admire about Dr. Martin Luther King, he was not a leader that was elected. He was a leader that's chosen by the people. That's a difference.
Yeah.
People who get elected or appointed, and et cetera, that's a little different. But Martin Luther King he didn't go out to say, oh, I'm gonna be the civil rights leader, I'm gonna lead us through. Someone saw that leadership in him, and he took on the torch and moved forward with it. And then when I think of other leadership styles, I love the style of President Barack Obama, his calmness, his way of standing, that communication to get it out. So I admired that. And there's some things I picked up on tips on that. And his ability to connect with people. He listens, look for their names. I had a superintendent who did that. And as well as he involved them in the conversation, and you could tell he could touch many. And that's why a lot of people, and he was right. And people call him moderate, and that's okay. But he had a way to connect to all people. I don't know if that's moderate or not, but he had a way of communicating to all. And then I had a couple of other internal leaders that I grew up with in my professional life. Shout out to Jackie Joyner, who was my math specialist when I was coming along. I just loved her style, that she was so competent in the knowledge of mathematics, and the way she was able to model and teach that. And then she took me under her wings. I picked up so much from her that was important. And my first principal that I admired, Mr. Mike Geiger, he was another person that I admired, his style, how he involved different people. Those things helped me in my professional career. And in my alpha career, my alpha model, and most brothers know it, is brother Alfonso Taylor. It was just not only he was a mentor for me, but he was a leader modeling that. So that is a combination of all those people, from famous and afar and close to you. Those things to help you to develop as a leader.
I love that. And one of the things I've always thought about, you talked about a lot of unsung heroes. I mean, obviously you talked about a few public figures, right?
Yes.
But then you talked about like math teachers, and just like sometimes, I mean, I'm just saying, like some of that goes unnoticed. So how do you feel motivated to lead when you know some of your deeds will go unnoticed or never known, maybe by anyone? You know, like one of those, I hear those things all the time, like people complain, but they know the work I'm doing for y'all, kind of thing like that. You know what I'm talking about. So how do you, Fred, how do you get motivated for things that maybe go unnoticed or unforeseen?
You know, I'm not looking for awards. I'm not looking for accolades. So if I can help somebody as I pass along the way, then I know my living is not going to be in vain. So people is my motivation, and people and their needs. So when I was working with children, it was students, those children and their needs. That was my motivation to get up and work and go and teach every day. When I was leading people, it's the people and the results. The happiest time is when I see the end result, not just the end result, but results from people are intrinsically motivated and satisfied about what they've accomplished or what they've done. That's my greatest accolades. And so some of those deeds go unnoticed, but not to me. So like I was looking at some of my former students who've done so well, and I'm going, God, that's the fruits of my labor of me teaching. When I look at some of the college brothers who've gone on and lead and done something, that's the fruits of my labor of working with that person, or a teacher who's now grown up, or people I served under me. As a leader, when I had people who were serving under me, I pushed others. And I'm so proud of them on what they are doing in their professional careers. And I hope I had a opportunity to kind of give them something to move forward with, because somebody did it for me. There were many others who did it for me, and so I gave back. So what do I get motivated to lead? It's people. Why? Somebody asked me this, Brother Wilkerson. They said, "Oh, Brother Scott, you are the district director. I know you don't like that position because it's tiring. The brothers can da-da-da-da-da-da." And I was like, no, I'm not tired. I love the position. I love working with everybody, and every opportunity, whether it's a challenge or not, it's just part of the whole part. And I'm going to relish in the fact that I'm privileged enough that the brothers put me in that spot. The same thing in working with school districts I work with all over the country. They say, "Oh, that's got to be hard." It is. But as soon as I'm in front of a client and a customer, that's important to me. Put me in front of a group of kids, I am just in seventh heaven. I did not like kindergarten, but I learned how I want to go in that classroom, read to them, just the love of learning. And people who want to learn and feel good about themselves, that's my motivation. And also that's my purpose in life.
I love it. I was smiling. You could tell that it listens to itself. But I'm smiling because I'll be doing that thing too. And I think maybe that's where the root of mine is too, is that I joke, but like, if I know people got the book of their life, right? And if I can get like a sentence in someone else's book of their life, I'm happy as hell. Like I get to claim it. I'll claim that, like, if someone had a biography and it was like, at one point in college, Philip Wilkerson helped me, and then he moved on to the next chapter. I'm like, yo, I'm gonna highlight that part. I'm like, yo, you see, I helped this. It does make that. I guess that altruism. That's where I get motivated too. Like it makes me feel good.
It does, and when you learn people and remembering names and knowing who they are, what they are, and I remember talking to you for the very first time, Brother Wilkerson, and you were like, "Why do you want to be district director?" Da 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 da. And you take it, and we talked for about an hour and 15 minutes, yes. And every talk with every person is important in anything that you do, because it also gives you the opportunity to do the following. You become self-aware of your message. You become, it sharpens your communication tool. You become empathetic to learn the other, and it also strengthens your active listening mode. So those are good qualities of a leader, but it also helps you with that. And I have admired you from the far on how you've articulated, even in your presentations. I noticed that time you were at Virginia State. I noticed the time we did that Zoom, how you were able to get your message out clear, your enthusiasm. I pay attention to everybody because guess what? Everybody that we meet along the way is going to add value to not only to you, but to someone else.
I appreciate that. And definitely, I appreciate one of the things, and this might be turned into just an appreciation podcast, but you were like one of the few people that actually, when you got an Ill Phil Award, actually called me immediately. And that made me feel good because like, I definitely tangibly like to show appreciation to people. And I think that, I'm definitely going to make my acronym. I don't know. I might steal people as one of mine. People helper or something. I don't know. I'm gonna figure out.
Well, I'll share this with you as a leader. Sometimes you have to make sure you don't lose sight of who you are leading and serve or providing service to. So as a teacher, I learned that you always had to call back the parents. And I was like, ugh. And then I went, okay, well, just be yourself. You know who the child is, et cetera, et cetera. When I became a principal, I had to call back parents. When I leader in a district, I had to call back principals and working with people. Those callbacks at one-on-one, and even in a fraternity, every person who's ever called me, I've taken their phone call. Every brother, every question, and I listened first. I try to hear what's going on and do right now. Sometimes I don't jump in right away, but It's just a reflection mode. And that's one of the things I learned from Brother Taylor.
I was about to say, though, now that you talked about that accessibility and access to you, how do you turn it off? How do you turn off the leadership hat, or just turn it off, period?
Well, you know what? The leadership hat, if you're a leader, is never going to be turned off because you've been tapped by God. So because you've become that leader and that influencer, when do you turn it off? Well, the only time it's off is when I'm sleeping and relaxing.
Yeah.
Other than that, when my brain is always turning about the next thing, and I'm always reflecting.
Mhm.
Now, I may not be talking to someone, I may not be doing the action of leadership with someone, but it is turning over in my head about the next thing. Not only on my job, but also in the organization. That's just been who I am. And I've always had that foresight, and I will dream about something, don't know what it means. And then finally, when it comes to my head, I put it to pen to paper and then start, laying out the foundation and pulling in whoever I need to pull with. Brother Carlton Jones, who's my executive director, he goes, Brother Scott, your brain don't ever stop. It just never stops. You got ideas all the time. And that's something of a trust feature, that when you have somebody you can trust, you can lay that with. So as a leader, having that trust factor is important. But if you will make decisions as a leader that is popular or unpopular, but guess what? Turning off as a leader, as long as you're with people and they know who you are, social media or face-to-face, it's not going to be off because they're looking to you because they have identified something in you.
I was about to say that, the looking to you and not off. One of the things I always notice is that people, I was thinking about the other day about that impact statement, like totally being transparent. I've tried to get new opportunities and gotten rejected, and it's been really hard, like really down, like, dang, applying for things, TED Talks, all these things. And then I don't get them, but then I'll get these random texts that someone says my name came up in a room that I wasn't a part of. And so it kind of brought to my mind that regardless of failures and triumphs, that eyes are always on you, if you become a leader. Can you speak to that too? Like you said, and I don't know, it kind of made me feel okay about, like, at least if I apply to a TEDx and I get rejected, but keep on trying, keep on talking, that eventually the eyes will come and opportunities will match those eyes, if that makes sense.
Sometimes we don't see the smaller doors.
Yeah. Okay.
We're looking for the bigger ones. So I would always say, look for those doors of opportunity that allows you to go in. There may be very small audiences because it builds. I've done maybe somewhere between 400 and 500 workshops and presentations in my lifetime. Mm-hmm. And the ones that started off really small, because one of the things I didn't go for, I didn't shoot for, I want to present at that conference. I want to present at that conference. I went for, I have a topic I want to present. I don't know where it's going to be presented. So I led with the concept. And then because I believed in that concept and could speak about that concept, then the other things came. So TED Talk or whatever else, it'll come in your door. So for the users out there, start with the smaller things. If it's no more doing something in your house, or I'm going to present to my dog and my child, or I'm present to my spouse, or I'm going to present to the neighborhood, I'm going to present at church. It's those little things that's going to build that confidence that when the big one come, you'll be ready for it. You'll definitely be ready for it. And there are many opportunities that will come your way once you find your passion, and also you find your content that you have mastered that you could speak on.
That's really helpful. I mean, honestly, that's what I'm thinking about. Like, yeah, I don't know, man. I'm almost speechless at that point because it gets to your self-esteem, I think, as you try to elevate.
Yeah. Rejection. Oh my God.
Rejection.
Yeah, rejection. All of my life. You get rejection now, and guess what? Don't take it internally. Usually rejections is the door of opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah.
This
I
is
know.
how you take that door. If you close it and never explore it, but failing is a part of success.
I mean, I'm assuming it's also a part of leadership then, I guess. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
So
yeah.
they go hand in
Oh,
hand.
yeah. Oh, yes.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah. I don't know. I think maybe that'll go to my next question. Like, what is, like so far, what have been some key successes? And then what has been like, just a failure, but now that you look at it with, the hindsight 2020, it wasn't really that much of a failure. For instance, you grew or another door opened. Like, for instance, I didn't get into JMU as a student off the break. I was waitlisted. So in that moment, in my world as a senior, that was a failure. And I was just really upset about it. But then I went to Bowie State first and made Dean's List. And then I still transferred to JMU. And in hindsight, I'm glad I did those 2 years at Bowie State. Not in the moment, I was kind of bitter. But in the moment now, I'm like, okay, wow, like I met some good friends. I got lifetime friends out of it. Like, I probably would have met this and that and done this. So, it's easy to see those failures in hindsight. So do you have one example like that for you?
So, in your life, you just already identified you weren't successful at that door, but you turned it to another, and then you still move forward. And that's just part of your journey. I've had a couple of things in my lifetime that I've had, many of them that I failed at, and I'm going, what did I do wrong? Mm-hmm. It's like, what did I do wrong? And I always go, my heart, if I'm always thinking about the value and impact, maybe the strategies were off. And if the strategies were off, how can I redo that? And having mentors, having leaders to reflect with, gives you a chance to redo some things. So, and then if it happens, I learn from it and I close the door and I almost forget about it. Okay. I don't dwell on it. Like coming out of school, and I was like, coming out of high school, and I was like, oh, I'd never won that position of such and such. I didn't get the popularity. It was I wanted to be a leader in high school, but it just wasn't the time. And I took it as a rejection. But I'll never forget that one teacher said, oh, you had a potential to do such and such. And when you go from a place where where the people are picking you, you'll be amazed. And that's where it was successful at Hampton, that I was chosen. And then I learned from the past to really set forth for the future. So everything I did, and even becoming a member of the organization, I didn't want to become the leader inside of that when I first started. So there's so many things that I've led that have gone, they're mistakes, but those are mistakes that you all will make. If everybody was perfect, guess what?
What?
The world can turn. I mean, really. So, the mistakes I've made have been great, from professionally, fraternally, personally. All has helped me to grow. That's who you are.
Yeah, I love it. One of the things I was thinking about too is, how do you know about scalability? So, for instance, you are like I said, head honcho of Virginia, and that's I don't know, but just bandwidth. You know what I'm saying? Like, everyone said I could stay in my lane. I could be, doing my thing, maybe in this small community in the pond. I'm gonna go to a bigger pond and end up in the ocean. How do you know when it's time to go to a bigger pond, or does it just naturally happen? These ponds.
Sometimes it naturally happens. Sometimes those opportunities come your way. For example, I'll take you. Everything people are doing in their life, especially those young folks, younger folks who are doing to become a leader, they're things that they're building a foundation for something later. They don't know what that is, but they're building it. So when I was building that foundation, starting in college, I had no idea that it was going to build towards, in my professional life, how to lead people, how to plan out a vision. I mean, it just matriculated right into my profession, and I just honed in the art and skill from my professional, how to write those objectives, how to set goals, how to, and I learned from many folks what those visionary messages would be and belief statements. So all of that just continues to build who you are, and it doesn't come overnight. And when that door of opportunity is there, it's up to you to step through it. If you don't step through it, as my dad would say, son, don't come back and say, I wish I should have, could have, would have.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So every door that has popped in my place, I have stepped through it. If I was successful with it, great. Every role I've done has been some success. There are things I've learned from them that I could have done over. Yeah, but no, I would not replace any of it because it's made me who the person I am today.
I love it. I love it. And so I have one more leadership question. So I know we got another segment on my show. So with that, like, I know you already started with some tips. Looking at me, like, do the Fred assessment. Doing the Fred assessment, looking at me directly, Philip Wilkerson. What do you think would be some tips you would give me individually, knowing the type of person I am? Like, I'm not, very authoritative or whatever, but I don't know. Just what would you say for me as a budding leader?
Well, one of the things I did as a budding leader was I took the time to help to develop myself. So knowing myself. So I did go through some assessments. I went through assessments such as my personality assessment with Myers-Briggs. I went through the CARE assessment. I went through the situational leadership assessment. So those are things that when you get back, it tells you something about yourself as a leader, where you see, as I call it, your strengths and your opportunities for growth. So always do that. I've taken assessments over and over, and I did the DISC assessment in my job in the last few months ago. So I'm always trying to assess where I am, and I've noticed I've shifted over time. I'm a little more empathetic than I was 15 years ago, where I was more analytical, but the analytical side is there. And I think those leaders who can combine all the attributes from any of those assessments. So knowing yourself is important. The next thing I would say to Philip is, where do you want to go? What goals do you have? What short-term and long-term goals do you have? Not only in your profession or where you want to go in life, with your family, financially, et cetera. And don't lead with money in mind.
Well, I'm an educator, man. So I don't know if that's gonna be.
Now, some people will disagree with Matt. They want to be a millionaire, so be it. And if that's their goal, that's their goal. But I would say to Philip, just making sure you know yourself. Then the next thing is, hey, what are the goals that I have for my life? What I want to set forth with, and what things make me uncomfortable that I need to get comfortable with? Because maybe those are the things that's going to help me to grow and push myself. I'm always looking for what I got. I got to look for something to push me. Once I master it, I'm ready to move on.
Okay.
So I don't want to get satisfied with the status quo.
So then I got to take calculus or something, because math makes me uncomfortable. like math.
Well, maybe take a little more statistics.
Yeah, that's what I say, statistics or something. Yeah.
And you know what? You can take it as far as, let me see how to use Microsoft Excel and use the doing more stuff there. I mean, there are a lot of self-paced things, but you have to decide where you want to go and what skill set, soft skills or whatever, is going to be needed for that. And that's always. And then I would say, is initiate your opportunity to share in how you do what you do. When you do this particular podcast, could you teach that to another person? If you taught it to somebody else, would it open up your eyes and your on how maybe you could do some things even better because you're leading it yourself? And maybe in that collaboration with them, they would give you a different insight. I love that collaboration because great ideas come from more than one. So for Philip, I would say. You're doing a great job with this particular podcast. It's always positive. So how would you teach another one? Maybe it's a student at George Mason that maybe is more introverted that could go, I would like to try that to see what that's like. It may open their eyes. Somebody pushed me when I was an introvert, and now look where I am.
Yeah, I like that teaching part, because that's for me, when I'm able to teach something to someone else, that is my confirmation of mastery.
Yes, that's a brain strategy.
Yeah, so if I'm able to articulate it, like you said, and like literally I'm putting it, if I'm able to articulate a topic or articulate a skill set, and that means I got the concept and I mastered it. So yeah, I definitely have. I told anyone that listens to this podcast or people that reach out to me, I have like a template email how to get started on podcast, because someone did it for me. So I've always felt the need to do it for someone else. But then it really reaffirmed that I must know what I'm talking about. Like at first, I didn't know what I was talking about with podcasting, but I figure if I know how to do it and teach it to someone else, then I must get it.
And it may be your opportunity to do a TED Talk for kids. Maybe. What is a podcast? How do you do it? And you can start with the elementary, 4th and 5th graders. They would go, oh, I would like to try to do that, because their young minds it'll also strengthen their communication skills, collaboration, critical thinking, writing, all of those things. And because they got their technical know-how to pick up quickly in this 21st century plus learning, you can start with that. And out of that story, and I will say this, Michelle Obama does this. Everybody has a story. When people tell their story, it resonates and connect. So that's where TED Talks. Those people are telling their stories. Mm-hmm, yeah. And what's going to be your story that's different from everybody else? Because I heard you say, hey, they've closed the door. And maybe the door is saying it's not opening because we don't know your story. What's going to make your story different from somebody else?
Yeah, I've actually heard that another time. So that's the messaging coming back. All right, well, I lied. I said the only part of my show that was organized was the shout outs and plugs. But this is the part of the show I call shot for shot. No, we're not drinking no liquor. Maybe next time when we do this in person podcast, we will. So this is your opportunity. I get to ask you a random question. You get to ask me a random question. Do you want to go first or I go first?
You want me to do the shout out? Or
No, not the shout out, like shot for shot. Like you get to ask me a random question and I ask you a random question.
Okay.
It has nothing to do with leadership.
All right.
Go first, I'll go first.
All right. I'll go first. What's your favorite food?
Okay, that's too. Say. All right, so I'm gonna say this. My favorite genre of food, of just the umbrella, is anything Asian. So that literally is just gonna encompass Japanese, Chinese, Thai, all that. Anything in that region and that style, I love it. And then add to that anything spicy. So spicy Asian food. That is my number one. And then anything that trickles down from there, whether it's sushi, whether it's Korean barbecue, whether it's, just not American style Chinese, Cantonese, all that. I lived in China, studied abroad in China.
So that explains it.
Well, no, I just loved it before that. I'm just saying I loved it. That was the greatest experience of my life, eating all that authentic Chinese food. So that would be it. If someone had like a dream thing, I usually just go by default. My wife's like, I don't want Asian food. Can we just get anything else, like Italian or something else? Because that's always my go-to. Okay, so here's your random question for you.
All right.
So is Hampton the real HU? I'm going to get you in trouble here. Is Hampton the real HU, Hampton University, or it used to be Hampton Institute? And why is Hampton better than Howard?
Right. I don't think any HBCU is better than any other.
Okay.
Each one offers an opportunity to help any of our kids get an education and grow. Howard University, Hampton University, I love the rival. Of that rival, I see it as a talk and a rivalry that brings interest to others. So the real HU are the people who represent the universities.
I love it. Okay, then never mind. Because I got into Hampton, I just didn't go. Because my mom's a Hampton alum. So
oh boy.
So this will be my second question. So then it could be with my mom. And then you definitely politicize yourself out of that one real good. What was attractive about Hampton as a university, and particularly just in Virginia too? Why did you go there? And if you were to do an alumni sales pitch, what makes Hampton a unique situation or special place for you individually?
As a student, I knew nothing about Hampton. I had never been on the campus. My first day was the first day you had to show up.
Wow.
So I had gotten this little catalog, and I still have it. And I kept reading it from page to page to page about everything the university was doing. And it attracted me just off the pictures and stuff. And when I got there, and I would say this to anybody who's thinking about a university, and historically Black university, it truly was my home by the sea. All of my phenomenal friends that I talk to, or at least speak to every day, are from Hampton. My professors, I talked to one of my college professors, Dr. Cooper, always talk to you. Love her to death. She was one of my professors there at Hampton University. My classmates, that's where I became an alpha. And it's friends for life. And my daughter said something that she said, Dad, I didn't choose Hampton, but the networking between the students and what you've had over your life is so valuable. And most people don't get that. The Hampton alum is very tight. We don't have to talk about HU. We don't have to talk about who's famous. We already have that internally, and that is a value to us.
I love that, and I think that's where my mom shares that same pride.
Mm-hmm. It is. It's a wonderful pride. I've taken people there. My wife's a senior. She said, "Lord, all of your friends are from that university," and it was the place that changed my life.
I love it. Well, that's been a great episode. I took notes. I think anyone that wants to be a leader, actually, I'm not joking. I did more than shout outs and plugs. I took like real notes, like I was in class, with all the different bullets and all your different qualities.
Oh my goodness.
Oh man, I might turn that. Hey, Fred, I might turn that into a PowerPoint and turn it into the. I might make two acronyms and do it the Fred/Philip collaboration. We might have to collaborate.
One of the things is, anybody I feel like I can make a difference with as I pass along the way really means something to me, whether somebody wants to be a teacher, somebody's in any of the professions, I got to give back to them. And anyone who wants to become a member of the organization of Alpha, because we belong to one of the greatest organizations on the planet, or not the best. But but I wanted to say that when someone wants, if they came to me to talk to me, I need to spend the time, whether it's about my profession or the organization or anything that I do.
I love it. So this is the part of the show, the stage is set. Anyone you want to show, it's called shout outs and plugs. Anyone you want to show love to, anyone. I know you have a whole list, so my whatever. And then plugs. These are any ways that people can either engage with you or things that you're working on, anything at which, like I said, I'll put in the show notes. So the stage is set, shout outs and plugs.
Shout out. I'm going to shout out my family, to my wife and kids. They'll really be proud of this. My colleagues that I've worked with over time, shout out to all of them from the days when I were in Richmond Public Schools, Chesterfield County Public Schools, Talent Ed, Power School. Shout out to all of them. And a phenomenal shout out to the brothers of the Virginia Association of Chapters of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. I love my brothers in the state of Virginia, to all 2,000 that are here in our state. So I want to give them a shout out, and also a special shout out to you for giving me this opportunity. This is my first time doing a podcast. Now a plug. I'm on social media. Facebook, someone can follow Fred Scott, and they can follow VACAPAF_president. Also, I'm on Instagram, and I'm always posting what I'm doing, but also things that are powerful. And on my Instagram page, every once in a while, I'll post a famous quote, a leadership quote, or a life quote, just for people to keep that in the back of their head, so you can follow me there. And then I also post it on my LinkedIn. I'll put it on my LinkedIn page, which I'm very active with. I always like to give professional shouts to articles that would empower others. So I have over 2,000 followers on both.
There you go. Well, thank you. And I'll definitely make sure to do that and definitely follow you and follow along. As I said earlier, you've been a phenomenal leader for Virginia, but also I think you really empowered people to be creative and try new things. And
oh yeah.
I don't know. It's been great. Now that you remember, I do remember that phone call and just where life has transpired and how we stayed connected, even in the midst of the pandemic. I felt still connected, and I still feel connected across the state. And I think that's a testament to not only just you, but also the brotherhood within the state. But we stayed connected, and I still feel like we have a place where it's been very isolated.
And we still need you to do some things. And I will tell you this, one of the things as a leader that I've done, it's just a little thing, but I do want to share this with you and to the listeners out there, that every member that has crossed in our fraternity under my administration, each person has received a card from me, a personalized card. And the reason why I did that, because the leader who was the VACAPAF leader when I crossed came to visit me, and he was from Richmond. And that has stayed with me. And I said, if I never planned on being in this role, now I am. Oh my God, every person who crossed, they get a personal note and letter from me. And I always kind of infuse what our theme is and also try to incorporate something that there's a reason why they came into the organization to do. So as a leader, that personal touch always will mean something. So shout out to each person that you've made up, everybody who's made a personal touch. If you're a leader, it doesn't hurt to pick up the call, a phone call, or send a card. A note is still important.
Yes, it is. It very is. I don't know. That was like a mic drop right there. I don't know how to respond to that. That was definitely great. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Hey, I enjoyed it.
Yeah. So listeners, please, share this episode with your family member and friends. If you have any questions for the podcast, you can call the podcast hotline. That's 571-336-6560. That's 571-336-6560. Sharing positivity is a movement. And we're out. Thank you for listening to Positive Philter, a podcast that focuses on family, friends, career, with a little self-help along the way. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with your family and friends, and like the Facebook page, Spreading Positivity a Movement. Thanks for listening.